if I can encourage each one of you to control your breathing, because that's a time when we are nervous, we get anxious, especially when we have such networks events. That's where we have to ensure that we breathe deep and then speak from that point. You will see the difference.
One of our favorite facilitators, please welcome to speak on executive impressions, Juvie Alex.
Thank you so much, Craig, and welcome everyone. Today we all have gathered to just understand how can we be the leaders who lead the change, it's cultural change, the change in people. We are talking about the executive impressions. Each one of you here are leaders. And you know your matter so well. You are experts in what you do. And in this section, can we try to elevate ourselves to the next level when we are discussing about executive impressions? Why is it needed? Because we are leading people. And when it's about leading people, it includes trust. It includes credibility. How do we show up? Today, as we enter this hall, most of you are unknown to each other. It's a networking event. What was your executive impression? What is that we created today? If we discuss this, it's not only about the formal presentations that we have with our clients, with the team meetings. No, it's even one-to-one. And why are we discussing this and stressing on this? Because we need leaders who have great executive presence. And who are the ones who have it? It's with executive impressions. Because impressions last. Impressions last. As we move forward, let's also realize if we believe it or if we accept it or not, but we all are walking logos. Logos of our professional brands, the personal brands. How many of you agree with me? Yes, yes, yes. Because the clients whom we discuss, because the team we discuss with, for them, we are the brand. So how are we showing up? Are we showing up with authority? How is our presence? How is our image? And that is what we are going to learn here. As I'm going through this, as I will be going on with this slide, I just want you all to just imagine that one leader or one person whom you trust and you want to follow. I hope each one of you have got that one person. And now just think, what about him or her makes you trust him? Makes you follow him in whichever direction he or she is asking you to follow? If this question was asked to me, and if I'm thinking about that leader, there are three aspects that I am discussing. It's about how are they controlling their body? How is the clarity in their voice? And how are they managing their breathing? So are we getting into understanding this in depth? Are we with me? Let's move on. When we are talking about executive impressions, it's body, voice, and breathing. Let's start with the first one. I have segregated here with what are the don'ts and what are the do's. Most of us, when we stand or when we step into to interact or introduce ourselves to someone, how is our body moving? Are we swinging and swaying? And this is happening unconsciously. This does happen. And what does it do? Instead of doing it, we will be moving on to it. Are we having a lot of movement? Too much of a movement when we are describing something or we are saying something? Are we a lot of animated? And then, lack of control of body. The hand gestures. We are just throwing off hands, not knowing what to do with it, but not realizing this is about the functional gestures that we have to bring in so that we use our hands. It's not to be used every time. And let's go to the do's. Stand tall, straight, upright. When we enter into that room of whoever may be, what is their image of you? What is their image of you? And when we look like a leader, that's when we feel like a leader. Stand tall, be straight. And this is not only for the face-to-face interactions, but it is also valuable for when we have those online conversations where most of us, we have been dealing all the meetings through Zoom. But what was our impression there? Did we lose it? Did we frame ourselves into that virtual screen space? Or did we lose our impression? Next is about less movement. That brings in credibility. And then we move on. Radiate confidence. Your body radiates confidence. And when you feel confident, the people whom you interact with, they are inspired. Let's move on to the next aspect. And that's about the voice. How many of you are aware of when you give the presentations or when you are discussing or talking to someone, do you have a low voice? Do you just whisper? Do you have a monotonous voice during all those sessions or presentations that you make? Or do you bring in some variations? It's so very important. It's about self-awareness. And that's why I encourage each one of you to take this time and have these tips and techniques with you for the next presentation of yours. Because you may feel that this is all common sense. It's not something that we have not learned. But let me tell you, from the last 2 to 3 years that we as a team has worked with so many large corporates, we see that the basics have been lost. And that's the reason we are emphasizing on it. So what comes in voice? Do not rush. Be slow and steady. Using filler words, most of us have that, yes. And then it comes for mumbling. Are we articulating our words properly? And let's move on to the do's for this. Have variation. Next is when you feel like you're using a lot of filler sounds, if you video yourself and see, please measure how you are talking and take good pauses instead of those filler words and filler sounds. And then talk with authority. When you have some serious discussions to be made, serious points to be highlighted, bring in that voice. Let's not mumble, because that doesn't allow the other person to understand what you are saying. And this is about the body and voice. And now if we describe about breathing, it's about influencing yourself first. Before each and every presentation, if I can encourage each one of you to control your breathing, because that's a time when we are nervous, we get anxious, especially when we have such networks, events. That's where we have to ensure that we breathe deep and then speak from that point. You will see the difference.